I made a few handouts here, so if you like anything I got to say, maybe you can come up and send it right over and take it till they leave. I only got about 100. I apologize. I'll try to make some more in between so you guys will have them. Maybe come back by and pick them up for the second session or something. But anyway, we're going to talk about what I personally believe is the least focused, most important piece of hitting that it just kind of floats out there. I really think I've probably done a better job in a 50-minute session, but we're going to go through this, and I want to make sure we can get everybody's questions answered, get a few questions answered maybe. And I'm always at a disadvantage. I said, if you saw me last night, I'm at a disadvantage. I'm like Whitlock. He probably talks a little quicker than I do, but being from the South, I'm a little slow. But you'll be able to understand me as long as you get past the accent a little bit. So anyway, we'll work on it. If you have a question, raise your hand. I'll try to go over it again. So the in-game hitting adjustments really come in three phases, okay? You've got your pitch by pitch, okay? You've got your at-bat by at-bat, and then your game by game, okay? So those are the things that you're really trying to work on and trying to make the adjustments as the game goes on and trying to get the kids to buy into. And it's one of the things that really gets to me, one of the things that was told to me years ago. I was talking to somebody who I consider one of the greatest hitters that I've ever talked to, and no, it wasn't Albert Pujols, it was Sean Reichie, who's now the NC State coach of the BU. And Sean was one of the most prolific hitters in the men's game. And I always wondered why, he was an All-American, a National Player of the Year, and so forth. And I asked Sean one time, and it really hit home with me. I said, Sean, what made you such a great hitter? I mean, you're a phenomenal player, but you're not, playing in the major leagues. You're not playing in Yankee Stadium, But I know you're a great hitter. What made you a great hitter? And I thought his comeback was awesome. He said, I wasn't afraid to fail, and I could make adjustments. And he said, if somebody had a good changeup, I knew, but by the third time I saw them, I looked at the patterns. I had an idea of what was going to happen at any given at-bat, and I had the confidence that I could hit the ball out of the ballpark. All right, I like that. It's a good answer. And we wish our kids had that same confidence all the time to be able to take it, but a lot of times the failure breeds failure. So we've got to be able to teach that adjustment phase in order for them to be more confident as they go along at their at-bat, so they can make the adjustments and hit that home run in their third at-bat. Just like we always know, if it's a tight game, most of the time the runs are scored in those last 3 innings. Okay, whoever can make that adjustment quick enough are generally the ones who are going to be successful and win the ball game. Okay, so that's how much time do we spend on that? That's what I'm going to ask you now, and that's what we try to work on. Uh-oh. Not too far. Try again. Okay, first of all, pitch by pitch. What are we looking at when we go up there? Have we ever seen this pitcher before? Did we see him early in the weekend? It's always tough. I always tell our girls when we get into scouting reports later on that the end of the season doesn't look like the first 2 weekends in particular. Okay, because a lot of times we have to be able to make decisions based upon somebody we've never seen. We just take maybe what we see in the first few innings and continue to work with each other and make sure that we get good enough information that we can make this pitcher. So have we seen this pitcher before? Is she a down pitcher? Is she an up pitcher? Does she throw off the plate? Mainly, if you look at most pitchers, they're usually down and away or up and in. It's just the way it generally tends to flow. Very few times, unless you're playing in the men's game, we don't see a lot in the women's game where they have a dominant rise ball and a dominant drop ball. It just doesn't happen very often. Okay, it happened once in my lifetime, and I was very grateful to have Angela Tincher. Okay, and she did have this, and it was both nasty. Okay, but most of the time it's not the case. Generally, we have to be able to get up on the plate with certain pitchers, or back off, given what they're being able to throw deep in the box, from the box, whatever. So now, my next question is, if we've never seen them, I like to, we're working in the back of the box. And how many of you all talk about this? Well, it gives, for for me, and I see this all the time, I see kids that come in at our level, and the first thing they do is they stand in the front of the box. They're out in front of the plate. And I always ask them why. And most of the time they'll say, well, I don't, either they don't know just because somebody's told them they're going to do that, or they have some kind of notion that they're going to hit the ball before it breaks. And I always laugh. I was like going, do you know where the ball tends to start breaking at? You'd have to be so far forward you'd be standing out of the box in most cases. All right, so that's really not necessarily, it could be, there's always exceptions to every rule, it could be a possibility, but there's also a good chance that that's not the possibility. So we like to work from the back of the box. Even if you watch any of the great teams, you watch Alabama, you watch Arizona State, those teams that I consider some of the better hitting teams in the country. You know, we went out with Kinsey Roark 2 years later after Angela, and to be honest with you, Kinsey was just an off-speed thumper for us. He did a great job for us for a couple of years, kept people off balance. And it was interesting for me to see Arizona State's hitters as we went to Tempe to see how they were going to adjust to Kinsey, having seen probably pretty good rise balls and so forth, good velocity in the Pac-10. Where did they live? Back of the box. Because, for a couple of different reasons, why we like to do it as well, is because if you stand in the back of the box, you're going to create an environment for that pitcher to have to cover more footage, okay, to make that ball do what it needs to do, okay? So let's say we're working from the point of the plate forward, obviously that's about 43 feet, okay? Most of the time, how many times have you ever seen, look down in your bullpen and your pitchers are working, and you see the catcher move back as if there's a batter in the back of the box? They usually set up just like it's a 43 foot and they're standing out in the middle of the box. Okay? So pitchers don't, as a whole, don't work on throwing to the deep in the box. They work at throwing in the middle to the front. So what we try to do is even in a, two different pitches we're looking at it. We're looking at it from a rise ball perspective and from a drop perspective. With the rise ball perspective, it gives us more time. If I say, you probably can't see this from where you are. Okay, if I got right in the middle of the stage, I'm going to use this as the back of the box. From back here, I can let the ball get up higher. Hopefully, I'm more disciplined and I can lay off that up pitch. Okay? But what about the drop ball? Everybody says, well, drop ball, you got to be in front of the box. Think about what I just said. They're generally used for throwing the ball 43 feet. How about get back here? 43 feet's up here. How about move back another 3 feet? Now make them throw their drop 46. What you'll see is, if you can teach get them to be patient enough, you're going to see them trying to throw that ball to the back because they're not getting the strike zone. Hey, the knees still dictate the bottom of the zone. Okay? And it changes from where you stand, if you're in the front of the box or from when you're in the back of the box. Umpire's not going to call the same strike up here that he's going to call or she's going to call from back here. Okay? So what we try to do is we can business. After a while, you start to see the kids start to get in the back of the box on their own, especially when we don't know what's going on with a certain pitcher, or if we know it's a drop ball pitcher. Because we're going to let the umpire dictate to the pitcher what's a strike or not. Okay? That makes sense? Okay? So we're going to make them bring that ball up. And as a rule, if you watch especially drop ball pitchers, if they don't have that finesse and they can't adjust their distances, you'll see the ball starting to flat out. They're trying their best to get it back there for a strike. And all of a sudden the ball flattens out and it gives the hitters an advantage. Same thing with the rise ball. If they're trying to get the ball down, if you're laying off and you're being disciplined in the back of the box on the rise ball. Whether we want to be on the plate versus off the plate. As I said earlier, you're going to have a predominant curveball pitch or a predominant screwball up and in or down the way. Up and in or down the way is kind of as a whole what you're going to see. A lot of times it's down, it's going to see in and out a lot of times. But generally you're not going to see the up and the down at the same time. So obviously if we see that predominant curve, we're going to be up on the plate. If we see the predominant screwball, we may give ourselves a little bit more room on the inside part of the plate without hindering our efficiency and our swing mechanics. Because that's one of the things I think kids automatically do is they think inside so that they can open the front side up. Okay? When they do that, all kinds of crazy things happen, right? And I'm not talking about, I think it's interesting, you know, how people say make an adjustment off the plate, on or off the plate, or make an adjustment, period. I always tell our girls, make the adjustment, give them the sweet spot of the bat. Okay? So if you're hitting it off the end of the bat, okay, and I want to get it to the sweet spot, I don't have to move my feet but that far. But what happens is they'll get up on the plate, and it's like, oh, I need to get off the plate. And now they're doing it this far. Now they're creating some other problem. And I say, make your adjustments in small segments. Okay? Find the appropriate spot to be in, but don't overcorrect. Okay? You'll hear me say this a lot. I tell my girls this: analysis, paralysis by analysis. All right? So we're trying to make sure that we don't overthink that. Okay? Front of the box versus back of the box, which we've just been talking about. Predominant rise versus a drop and change in the umpire strike zone. I kind of jumped around there on that a little bit. Okay? But if we're going pitch by pitch during that at-bat, that's what we're looking at, especially having seen it. If we know that pitcher's pattern, okay, and we know they're predominant one way or the other, then we've probably already gone in with a plan. Okay? And then we're going to be successful or not. Well, so what happens to that? Okay, so next thing we go from that is going to be next at-bat, right? Okay, what did I learn from the first time I was up? Our plan and our approach may change. We may have already had a plan and approach if we had a scout report or we had an opportunity to see this pitcher before we got the player. Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. Okay? So make sure that that should be saying situational hitting instead of situation hitting. Okay, so when I say that, you know, if our plan and approach and we've got a runner on first and we're no outs and I don't give a bunt, I'm always telling our girls, look for something out over the plate we can drive behind the runner